Hello, I am 13, and we get to play with one of my favorite cards tonight. I'm calling this deck Thunderbolts and Lightning because we have so many cards with lightning in the title. And yeah, so this is going to be Jeskai Midrange. As usual, going to qualify this. If you want to play midrange, play green black. If you want to play midrange with lightning bolt, play Junt. As far as this deck, we get Thunderbolts and Lightning. Very, very frightening. So Thunderbolt, Lightning Helix, Lightning Angel. Lightning Angel was recently and sort of recently in FTV Angels. FTV Angels, a lot of people were giving it crap because in the card by card description for all the cards in the set, Lightning Angel was said to be a really good modern card despite seeing absolutely zero play. Basically stating that it's a relevant evasive body, it can attack, it can block, it survives Lightning Bolt, it has haste. This is basically our 4-mana Lightning Bolt. It's basically going to hit the opponent for 3. Most importantly, though, it can block Arc-like Phoenix. So 3-4 is actually very relevant at the given moment. So Lightning Angel is going to be a good card here. We also have seen the power of Mantis Rider in humans. It is basically their best card. Again, 3 mana, Flying, Vigilant, Haste, just keywords, all the keywords. Very powerful. It does die to Bolt. It doesn't get the benefits of Thalia's Lieutenant in our deck, but we basically have 4 Bolts, 4 Lightning Helixes, 4 Lightning Angels, 4 Mantis Riders. We're also backing that up with the powerhouse cards of 4 Path to Exiles, 4 Serum Visions. We end up running a couple of other Jeskai-ish cards like Remand, Electrolyze. We end up having Teferi on the top end. This is somewhere in between Jeskai Midrange and Jeskai Control/Burn. And then we also have a couple of One of Angels in our very powerful suite. So Lyra's going to end up making our Lightning Angels 4/5s, also give them lifelink. Aurelia is going to make it so that our Lightning Angels basically are attacking in as a 5/4, also with Trample. Baneslayer, just 5 mana, awesome finisher, great in basically all the control list. We're also running a Teferi on our top end, just very powerful. He's great in Jeskai Control. We have a little bit of ability to flex up our deck post sideboard, get rid of some of our creatures if we're expecting Snaring Bridge, have some of the really powerful white hate pieces. Static Caster is going to be able to clear the ground so that Lingering Souls won't be getting in front of us. And I apologize because my dog is freaking out. So I'm actually going to step away for just a second before we hop into queue. Horrible timing, but I'll be right back. Alright, apologize about that. We'll go ahead and join queue. So this deck, we don't utilize the graveyard, so we do end up grabbing Logic Knot as a consideration. Logic Knot is going to allow us to actually counter things that matter and do a little bit with our graveyard. We have Electrolyze again, Lingering Souls. It's going to be a problem for this deck. But just a lot of powerful removal cards. I'm expecting spell-based combos to be bad for us because we're basically going to become a burn deck. We don't have Snapcasters. But yeah, we have basically 12 copies of Lightning Bolt, and we have Lightning Angel and Mantis Rider. Again, these cards are a little bit low on the power level for Modern, but we get to do things, and things should be fun. Yeah, Thunder, Lightning, Lightning Angel, woo! Lightning Angel was one of my favorite cards back in the Apocalypse block, just so good. What do we have here? We have a Remand. Lyre is a little bit on the top end. Oh, that is something I did actually want to mention. So, our last Wednesday stream, we were trying to play Boros Turns. We ended up belling early. Then went into Narset Cannon. but the league bugged out super hard. So we actually didn't retain that video. So sorry, but we don't actually have anything there. We were on Twitch for a bit, but it just wasn't great. As far as this hand, I would really prefer to see a third mana source. We only have 22 lands, and we have multiple 5-drops. We do have Lightning Helix and Remand, and we're on the draw, so I think we're going to give this... words. I think we are going to give this a shot, but we could definitely do better here. We only have 6 fetch lands and a couple of the check lands, so most of our lands are actually good, but... Ooh. Well, we have Lightning Helix, Lyra. Give us a land? Oh, if we have a land, we're discarding a hand size. I actually don't know how to feel about that. Okay, so draw Bolt. Yeah, this is going to get a little awkward. Remand loses so much value here. Although, that's what you want to see. So the Scalding Tarn's going to have to get a blue source. For now, we just want to get a mountain, not actually take a shock. And just get rid of the Goblin Guide. Don't discard the hand size. Get to play some very powerful magic cards. Eidolon is going to be a bad card for us. We do end up going over the top of Eidolon eventually, but we might be in an okay position. This Lightning Angel is actually going to be eating 2 Lightning Bolts more than likely. It's going to end up gaining us 4 life by the time that we get up to Lyra. More guides. Another land is perfectly fine, though. Means we're going to be main phasing this Lightning Helix. They also don't have mana up for Skullcrack, which is going to be relevant. It also means we have to go get a Hollowed Fountain, unfortunately. We do need to get our blue source here. But considering I was feeling a little hesitant because I didn't have my lands, the double Goblin Guides giving us lands is fantastic. Go back up to 15. Opponent has 3 cards in hand. Next turn we're going to be holding up Remand, Path, and Electrolyze. Yeah, Rocky got groomed, and so he's been freaking out lately. He's like a little 5-pound dog, and he ended up losing like 2 pounds worth of fur, so... He's feeling a little violated. Alright. So, odds of needing to path here are very low. Remand's not really going to do a whole lot for us, but the Electrolyze is kind of just... Yeah, Electrolyze isn't going to do much for us either. So, what we're probably looking at is... If opponent had a Swift Spear, they would have actually played it. If opponent had an Eidolon, they probably would have ran it out. So they're going to try to bolt us in step, likely holding on to a Boros Charm, potentially a Lightning Helix. I think that means we're going to run out our tap land and hold up Remand. If opponent goes to bolt us at in step, we might just need to bolt it because I'm getting the read that they're holding a Boros Charm. So they'll go through their turn without doing anything, and Remand will just rot in hand. Okay, well, I had a bad read. Either that or they just top decked the Eidolon and didn't have a bolt. But in the meantime, Lightning Angel is great. It's going to be playing Goyf in our game plan of tempoing them out. And if they do want to kill it, it's 2 bolts. Otherwise, we're going to follow it up with Lyra, give it lifelink. And Lightning Angel, such a good card. I actually can't remember who did the art for this one, but I am a huge fan of it. Easily one of my favorite cards. Back when I used to play as a kid. Lightning Angel. Looks like it was an RK post. Yep, there's a Searing Blaze. Lightning Bolt on the Angel. Alright. Well, that's a start. And perfect timing on the non-shock land. So, we'll see if they have a Skullcrack or if they have another Searing Blaze. But basically just running out must answer threats turn after turn. That's what we signed up for today. Oh yeah, they just burned everything they had. Perfectly good. So, Linvala is just another angel that can come in. I really don't think it's relevant here. This is more important in the creature combo matchups. It's great against Arcbound Ravager. It's great against Devoted Druid combo, Walking Ballista, all those fun things. Leyline would be a really good card in this matchup, but I don't really think we have it. Jeskai Control is very favored against Spurn, and we end up getting 2 of the best 5-drops in the match for it. Archangel's great. Can't tell you how many times I've actually flashed Sin to kill an attacking Eidolon and having an opponent being like, great, I guess this is where all my damage is going for the time being. They have to double bolt it with the indestructible trigger on the stack. Lightning Helix will gain us 4 life. We have plenty of early interaction for the creatures. I am a huge fan of Expansion Explosion. It's the Blue-Red Sphinx's revelation. Just so good. You can also copy Lightning Helix. So one of the things we can consider doing here, though, is bring in Pyromancer's Ascension. If we expect to hit a couple of cantrips, we could end up generating a lot of value. If we double a Lightning Helix, basically the game's over. I'd probably be looking at cutting that over Remand. Remand doesn't really do a whole lot against 1-mana spells other than cantrip. We got super lucky drawing into our lands last game, though. So I kind of like this plan. Actually, it's probably better to take out Electrolyze. It just costs more. This won't be removing any creatures, and this is going to give us redundant spell names for the Pyromancer's Ascension that cares about cards with the same name in the graveyard. But basically, we have a couple of really good hosers here, and we just need to make sure to draw those. The double Pyromancer Ascension hand with Baneslayer and no white sources. This has to be a mulligan. And this seems fine, but it's probably going to be Tuck Path. Bolt's going to be killing their first creature. Helix will be killing their second. Archangel is just so good. Giving our creatures indestructible and making them actually spend resources on the creature. When we start attacking our opponent's face, we'll be sad that we had to pass back the path, but it's fine. So Arid Mesa here being able to get us a blue source or just a red source to Lightning Bolt. It might have been correct just to run out the mountain expecting to have a creature that we need to bolt here, but if our opponent taps out for anything, like a Monastery Swiftspear, or Goblin Guide, or an Eidolon, they won't have a Skullcrack, so this Lightning Helix will probably be really good next turn with a blue source. Alright. I really hate taking damage off my shocks against Burn, but here it's probably correct just to bolt it, the Swiftspear. So we need white sources, so it's going to be another Hollowed Fountain. And I grabbed the wrong land. Fantastic. Alright, well, we'll take 2 from the Swiftspear instead of 2 from our land, and Lightning Helix it. We'll be back on the original game plan. Yay, actually having red mana and doing things correctly. So, opponents light up the stage and end up getting them a land and an Exquisite Firecraft. If they spend this turn to cast Exquisite Firecraft, whatever. I'm more concerned about the 4 cards in hand. Each one of those averaging about 3 damage, assuming they're non-lands, means that we're looking at 12 damage in hand. And I'm expecting to not actually... So the logic, whatever you're trying to Serum Visions, is actually try to resolve if you're going to fetch first. I would prefer to fetch, but depending on what I draw with the Serum Visions, I'll probably want to end up having up different mana sources. So I don't really want to ruin my scry. I'm going to go ahead and fetch a Shock Land here and just leave up the Lightning Bolt. Of note, going down to 12 is very bad when I'm expecting my opponent to potentially just have 4 bolts and a land in hand. But we have plenty of things we can draw into. Ooh, yeah, that's not great. Hopefully they're just planning on investing in a creature this turn. Lightning Bolt can take care of it. Still a little bit off this Archangel, though. The path we ship back from our opening hand is actually pretty dead, so it's good we got rid of that. And nothing. So I'm expecting Bolton Boros Charm end step. In the meantime, Mantis Rider will turn on Searing Blaze, but we need to get a clock going. We can't just sit here and let them do whatever they want to. So red, white, blue, but need to leave up the red. Mantis Rider can come down. They don't have any way to trigger landfall, which means that we're probably getting in for the 3 unless they're not holding it. If Mantis Rider eats a bolt here, it means they don't have Searing Blaze. Alright, so they are planning on Searing Blazing the Mantis Rider. Little unfortunate, but they just have so many cards in hand. Do you have another Exquisite Firecraft? This was pretty common tech back when, in Legacy, when Counterbalance and Sensei's Divining Top was a thing. Alright, so they just have lethal. Oh no, had to turn on Spectacle. Alright, I'm on board so far. Well, that is significantly less threatening than it could have been. What do we get? Remand. Again, not great. But we're at 9. Opponent has 1 card in hand. Could definitely be worse. We already have our double white, so just going to get out our mana here. Archangel Avacyn, when it enters, will give all of our creatures indestructible, which means if they want to kill it during their turn, they're going to have to double bolt it with the trigger on the stack. And opponent looks like they're flooding out kind of hard here. I'm expecting them to have targeted removal in hand, or just like a generic bolt, because they're trying to leave it up for our creatures. They are recognizing that Mantis Rider and Lightning Angel are a threat in this matchup. Also, after seeing Lyra, they probably brought in Path to Exile. Alright. Well, that's a thing. This fetch land is representing landfall for Searing Blaze. But if they kill Mantis Rider, Archangel Avacyn will flip, doing 3 more damage and also turning into 6 power. Huh. I have no idea what's going on over there. Video locked up. I'm not showing any frames lost on my end, Bradwan. Well, so opponent must have been holding another land. It looks like they flooded out pretty hard there. But definitely showed the power of being able to drop creatures with 3 power as opposed to just trying to count to 3 with burn spells. How are you looking now? Did you reload? Is it working? Alright. Well, I need to update the record. I'm still so bad at that. Ended up 2-0ing Burn, though. Again, super favored for Jeskai versus Burn. We end up having pretty much the same spells, but we have counter spells. Most of the time, Snapcaster being a 2-for-1, just better value than top decking like a Lava Spike. We ended up being able to just drop Lyra after they used 2 burn spells on a Lightning Angel in game 1, and then game 2 they flooded out a little bit, but still some pretty high quality cards there. We are on the draw, so it looks like we're going to have a turn 2 Lightning Helix into a turn 4 Lightning Angel, followed by a turn 5 Aurelia. Given the fact that we have our lands and spells, this is okay. Typically, if you're waiting until turn 4 in Modern, your deck's not doing enough, so I'm really leaning on the back of this Lightning Helix being able to do something. We're also on the draw, and if we take a quick look at our deck, we end up having 12 very impactful 1-drops, and we end up having 10 fairly impactful 2-drops, one of which is in hand, so we have essentially 9, 12, 21 cards that we can draw into in the first couple of turns that actually do something, so we can go ahead and keep this. The new Mulligan rule is being a little bit more generous and allowing you to keep worse hands, but this is exactly why it's fine to keep a moderate hand. There's a lot of discard going around right now. People are feeling more inclined to mulligan with the new London rule on Magic Online, so if you're mulliganing down to 5 or 6 expecting to keep a really high quality 5 or 6 card hand, the Thoughtseize will just pick that apart and basically leave you at nothing. And opponents probably just wondering what the heck is going on. Like, we're essentially trying to play Angel Tribal and Jeskai, which, I mean, it almost works. But, yeah, so I'm expecting a creature from opponent next turn. We have Hollowed Fountain, so Arid Mesa's got to get a red source. Alright, so probably just Serum Visions here. The fact that they fetched into a basic, wow, so many lands. This could potentially be 8-rack or Smallpox or something along those lines. I would expect to see a green land if it were Golgari, but that's fine. Okay, so the card advantage from Bob is going to hurt, but we are essentially a burn deck, so I'm actually okay if they start losing life. They did take our Lightning Helix, so it's not like we have a lot we can do here, but it also might have been short-sighted. Oh, yes! It may have been short-sighted to run out the land that they knew about. Collected Brutality. So Duress is going to take the remand anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and just reman it, recycle. Taking the 2 from the Confidant doesn't actually mean a whole lot. Rocky, dude, you're good. Alright, this is starting to get painful. We have 22 lands, but we've seen so many across all of our games. So we still want another red source. So Arid Mesa can come out. Opponent knows about it. They don't know about the additional Lightning Angel or the Sacred Foundry. Sorry, bumped my mic there. Opponent missing land drop next turn's quite good for us. I'm expecting a Liliana of the Vel to be coming down this turn off that Overgrown Tomb. Or they drew Blooming Marsh for turn, but still same concept. Kalitas setting them for 4 is just fantastic. If we don't do anything about this Bob, it's quite likely that they'll end up dying. Oh, please put out another Bob. Being a pseudo bird deck, I would love that. Alright, so they're going for the drain now. But haha, we only have creatures. Awkward draw. Very awkward draw. Oh, I should have cracked that. That was poor sequencing. Okay, well, Lightning Helix is fantastic here. The Blooming Marsh means that they won't be able to kill Lightning Angel with a Fatal Push, which is just gravy. So go ahead and just run out, grab basics. Opponent doesn't know about this Helix yet. We have basically every color that we need. Lightning Angel. Galileo. Alright, so opponent's likely going to be hitting the point. If they don't get a land here, they'll probably have to kill their own Bob. They know about this Aurelia. They know about the other Lightning Angel. Make a sack Lightning Angel, more than likely. Yep. Most expensive Lightning Bolt ever, but that's fine. So opponent... Oh, nope, 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 nope. Oh, god damn it. Well, given the misclick through combat steps, means Aurelia gets to come down. Aurelia will be attacking as a 4/5 next turn, although opponent should be at 7. Getting a land there is just great for them, but not nearly as good as me accidentally clicking through our main phase. Yep, Pulse on Aurelia is fine. Alright, so of note, Hissing Quagmire and Dark Confidant means that they can attack for 4 next turn. This Lightning Helix should be great, though. That Lightning Helix is fantastic, so... but we have to kill Liliana, otherwise they're going to make a sack our Lightning Angel. It'd be so much easier if opponent was just at 7 this turn. Alright, well, white, and we need to leave up red and white, so this guy's going to be our last one. Lightning Angel comes down. Kill Lily. Alright, so if we had hit opponent for 3 the previous turn, then we still would have ended up about the same. Alright, now we sack. Dark Confidant reveals a 3-drop and we'll win next turn. Or we draw one of our 4 bolts, or our last Lightning Helix, or... Mantis Rider, or Lightning Angel, or... Yep, that'll do it. Who needs Bolt, Snap, Bolt when you have Bolt, Lightning Helix, Mantis Rider? Alright, so horrible misclick. We still end up taking that one. As far as what we actually care about here, Scooz is about the only activated ability we care about from opponent. They do actually have Kalitas. Rest in Peace is actually hilarious because it'll make their Goyf shrink, but I'm not... Boarding in just for Goyf and Scooz feels horrible. I don't actually ever think that's correct. We have so many pieces of interaction that kill excuse me, that can kill a Goyf or Skooz kind of early, or just straight up counter it with Logic Knot. Like, it doesn't really feel right to be doing this. Pyromancer's Ascension here is actually kind of cute, but because of the Skoozes, I'm not a huge fan of it. Our deck is fairly well streamlined for doing Jeskai tempo things. Settle the Wreckage could be good if they end up going wide enough with Kalitas tokens. They do have unconditional removal spells for our creatures, but luckily most of them, like this entire package, is... This package is immune to Fatal Push. This package is Revolted Fatal Push. Pretty much everything but these are immune to Lightning Bolt. Electrolyze feels pretty horrible here. I could potentially see this being correct just because we have to take our Electrolyze out, and this is actually relevant here. This also feels pretty decent to pitch to Liliana, assuming it's not relevant at any given moment. Logic Knot with Rip is just so bad. Maybe just another Angel would be good enough. Wow, Rocky, dude, what is going on? Grafdiggers is horrible in this matchup. Snapcaster won't actually kill anything. It's... doesn't feel great, but I think that's where we're at. Basically, Rip is just slightly more relevant than whatever it's called. Electrolyze. This could actually finish off a Lily after an Edict, but that doesn't feel good enough. And they are on the plan of discarding. This hand is fine. We don't have any white sources, and every card in hand is white. I guess that's actually a mulligan. That seems fine. We'll end up putting a Lightning Angel back. If they end up Thoughtseizing or Inquisitioning, we'll end up just getting rid of Serum Visions. Goodbye, Lightning Angel. Card's so good. Alright, so I want to be able to bolt, assuming that we miss on a land drop here, so it's going to be a Steam Vents. Definitely on top. On bottom, I just want to hit land drops for now. These cards all look great, but this is actually just such an awkward... Oh, Bolt won't even kill Goyf here. We're going to have to path it. So I should actually probably address why Bolt won't kill Goyf here. You kind of hear the old adage kind of making fun of the guns argument that damage doesn't kill creatures, state-based actions do. We currently have a sorcery and a land in the graveyard. If we end up bolting the Goyf will be marked for 3 damage. We'll go to check state-based actions, and the Lightning Bolt, which is an instant, will be in the graveyard. So it will end up being a 3/4 with 3 damage marked on it, which is why that doesn't work. In the meantime, though, just run out the Scalding Tarn. I'll happily take another shock here to get a white source, and then we can path the Goyf, assuming that nothing goes horribly wrong. I'm kind of expecting a Liliana from our opponent's side, so having Lightning Bolt into Lightning Angel to kill it on turn 4 just seems great. This time I'm going to get the right colors, because that's what smart people do. We end up needing more red in this deck, so it's going to be a Sacred Foundry, white and red. Take the shock. And we've done some pretty decent damage to ourselves, but perfectly okay. I am a little sad. It looks like opponent missed their land drop, which means that path will be actually ramping them, keeping them up to curve, but if they don't have anything great to follow it up with, we'll at least Serum Visions hopefully into our 4th land and have a couple of things that do things here. Alright, so late Field of Ruin's fine. Interesting. Alright. I'm on board. So I'm getting the read that they don't have a Fatal Push, otherwise they would have waited until our main phase. so that they can kill this Mantis Rider when it comes down. But if their plan was set us up for a creature and bring out Lily, hopefully Lightning Angel will just kill them next turn. We'll kill her next turn. It's weird how relevant a 3/3 evasive threat can be. Alright, so is that actually trying to trigger Revolt this time? Or do they just have a ton of Field of Ruins in hand and they're trying to basic check us? Alright, that's slightly awkward. Land drop? Sort of. You still have interaction, though. That's what this deck does. Interaction. And as opposed to green-white, you actually want to allow them to attack here, because they're not going to go to counter your spell, so they won't have to tap the creature to counter it. And they ran out all of our basics, so we're going to have to take a shock. We need white above all else, so it's going to be another Sacred Foundry. But Lightning Angel, another relevant threat. No way to trigger Revolt, so this should just be getting in. Such a good Lightning Angel. You're doing right by me. Yeah, I pulled it up a little bit before, but they just did such a good job with this. And don't let anybody tell you that the 1997 border isn't the best. Just so good. Duress and Drain. So opponent's getting flooded pretty hard. They get to take our path, but they also get to see the fact that they're looking at least a Linvala and probably a Baneslayer. We are getting slightly low on life, but opponent has 2 cards in hand. And it looks like it's a Scooze. Yeah, you get our Mantis Rider. But Linvala comes down, you can't make it any bigger. You're looking at 6 in the air versus 3 on the ground. So, probably a correct play from opponent taking our Bolt there. We look like a deck that should be using Snapcaster Mage, but as part of making this pseudo-angel tribal, we ended up needing to take out the Snapcasters, plus Snapcaster is a really good card, and we play a lot of jank. There's a Goyf, currently a 3/4. Yeah, you can't even get in. Oh, that is just fantastic. Alright, so Archangel Avacyn will give our creatures indestructible. We're currently looking at 6 in the air. They'll have 3 on the ground. We can flash in and block. Alternatively, I can just run out Baneslayer. Baneslayer will eat the first removal spell. If they don't draw removal, Avacyn can protect it. I'm thinking Baneslayer's coming down. Because they're going to have just a fantastic card to get through Baneslayer. If they do kill Baneslayer and attack in, that means I'll be taking 4, but I won't be dead. Yeah, that all seems right. So, Steam Vents will cover most colors. I just want a Hollow Fountain. And can you keep up with our Angel's opponent? Because you either drew a removal spell or you're dead. Alright, well, that's game. Because if they go to kill our creatures, we'll just flash in Avacyn and protect them all. Pretty dang good. Alright, so we did take that fairly decisively. I do believe that our opponent is actually favored to win that race because they can end up taxing our hand while we're trying to ramp up. They can end up getting bigger creatures than us. Goyf, for all intents and purposes, should have been bigger than our opponent's stuff. The fact that they drew it after the Scavenging Ooze meant that the Scavenging Ooze made Goyf a 3/4 as opposed to a 4/5 because they took out the only creatures in the graveyard. Goyf would have been able to attack in past our creatures. We still would have had Avacyn, but opponent did get flooded pretty hard. We were at 5 lands when they were at, I think, 7, maybe 8. And we're both just trying to draw basically mid-range, tough to deal with creatures. Our evasion's really good, and we end up getting some really good cards, but opponent gets discard. They get unconditional removal. We get bolts. I know Reddit's actually been saying that Bolt is in kind of a bad position at the given moment, but I don't necessarily think that's true. Alright, as far as this hand, we have no cards in the graveyard except for the Serum Visions. We're going to start off with Serum Visions into potentially Logic Knot for 1 into Electrolyze. We get to sculpt our hand a little bit, and we do have a curve. This seems fine. I don't like the fact that we have Baneslayer and no white mana, though, because we are light on fetch lands to try to keep our land count high. Basically, all of our lands matter. It does make some of these cards draws a little bit more awkward because we can't fetch out the lands we need. But Electrolyze used to be like a huge modern staple. I think Lingering Souls was more prevalent back in the Twin days, which seems weird, but it was a really popular card. I think it was because it could kill Pestermite, so it made people go into Deceiver Exarch. I don't know, but 3 mana replaces itself, flexibility, just pretty dang good. And we're going to look a little bit like Phoenix to start off here. Mantis Rider is great. Teferi. How do we feel about Teferi? So we're going to draw a land. We're going to have Logic Knot. We'll Mantis Rider. We'll have our 4th land. We can Electrolyze our Logic Knot. I don't necessarily like Teferi. He's really good, but I don't know what matchup we're playing, and I'd like to find my 5th land. Plus, next turn's probably going to be Arid Mesa, so that we can get an additional card in the graveyard for Logic Knot. Also go get our white source for Mantis Rider. Alright, Hardened Scales Affinity. And they have their Hardened Scales. So, Electrolyze is going to be less good since everything's going to be massive as it is. Logic Knot here will hopefully grab an Arcbound Ravager. Animation Module. I guess it's getting an Animation Module because they already have the Hardened Scales. So, that's going to be a Hollowed Fountain. Yes. Logic Knot. Counter unless you pay 2. Also gets them further away from having Metalcraft. Yep. The plus side, Mantis Rider can block and attack. Oh, I think I'm killing that now. Let's see, so I can just Electrolyze it and draw a card, leave opponent with 2 cards in hand, hold up. Lightning Helix is a ways off. I can just Lightning Helix it now. If opponent has at least a land in hand, this is super awkward for them. I also don't want to turn on the Opal. I think as long as we're just ahead, I have to go for the free kill here. That means Mantis Rider can come down, then we're on Baneslayer, and we should hopefully be winning. Opponent has a Hardened Scales, but without anything else, they can't do super busted things. And let's mute Slack. Alright. Well, opponent gets a good card. And they can protect it. So hopefully this Ancient Styrians is a pause because they have a couple of bad things to choose from, not a couple of good things to choose from. But we actually do have all of our colors here. Quite happy to see that. Mantis Rider next turn, hopefully with a bolt. Mantis Rider will be a 7-turn clock, but hit them down to 17. The following turn will end up laying a Baneslayer, put them to 14, then attack in for 8. So they're on a 4-turn clock. I don't think Lightning Helix speeds it up at all. Lame. Alright, so this can get bad pretty quickly. But on the plus side, that Serum Visions is going to do something. So if you have card draw, you always want to use it first. I know I can still Mantis Rider off the Clifftop Retreat. See if we get something a little bit better. Path to Exile would be great. I'd love a path. Land. So I can Mantis Rider this turn, hit them to 17. Next turn I have Mantis Rider and Helix, knock them to 11. I think I don't want this Lightning Angel, but I actually do think I want this Mantis Rider. It speeds up our clock, so it's worth going for. In the meantime, Mantis Rider can block an Ink Moth, so we won't get cheesed out that way. Currently, Arcbound Ravager can be a 6/6 though, so it's possible I need to start chump blocking if opponent ends up drawing a Walking Ballista. Yeah. This deck can just kill you out of nowhere though. Alright, Darksteel Citadel isn't that bad. So I'm hitting for 9 next turn. But I'm potentially going to 4, 6, 8. I'm potentially going to 9. Makes any top deck land lethal. Probably have to keep the Welding Jar around, but... Yep, that's fine as long as there's not a Walking Ballista around. In the meantime, I have to take a shock, or I can go get the planes. I don't know the top of my deck anymore, so this can just be a basic. And Lightning Helix can be shenanigan-y. Usually it's harder with an Arcbound Ravager and a Welding Jar out, but it can be shenanigan-y. So depending on what opponent top decks, if it's just a single artifact, then I can Lightning Helix out of range without blocking. The artifact math is so disgusting. If there's a Walking Ballista on top of the deck, then that means that they'll attack in, hit us for 6, move the counters over, giving the Walking Ballista 8 counters. Lightning Helix will still kill us. So I think we're dead to a Walking Ballista. If it's a Hangerback Walker, they put it out for 1. It'll come in with 2 counters. They sack it, get 2 Thopters. There'll be a 12-12 we should live. Oh, but the welding jar. Alright, so if I don't block, there's 2 artifacts to sack. That'll put us at 10. Lightning Helix will keep us alive. And opponent's trying to figure out if it's worth going for. Guess they decided it wasn't. Well, we will confirm that for them. Typically, you don't want to confirm that for them, but basically, we're at the point again where a top deck bolt can be lethal. Alright, now they just have to not block. Although it's kind of a free block because they'll activate a assigned block and then sack it to the Ravager. Or sack it to the Phyrexia's Core. They have a couple of options. We're still dead to a top deck Ballista, though. Baneslayer needs haste. All those keywords need to add haste to it. Can't remember who it was, but somebody was saying that Standard's always good when a card like Baneslayer is good. Just a 5 mana threat with keywords. If that's good, it means that fair decks are doing good, so it's not really a degenerate format. Modern's a little too quick and doesn't care as much. We're only playing it because it's an Angel. But I actually felt like that was pretty accurate. Like, you can tell if a format's good if Baneslayer Angel is good in it. Alright, fair enough. Opponent did not respect the bolt. Don't really want to show them the Baneslayer unless we have to. Typically, if you're running Lightning Helix, it's copies 5 through X of Bolt. So, opponent, Izzet Snapcaster is actually really good, assuming that they don't get Hardened Scales out. This is just free. Kill any X1s. Stony Silence is fantastic. I could find an argument for Settle the Wreckage, but we're also bringing in Linvalis, that they can't activate Arcbound Ravager, Hangerback Walker. Electrolyze, I would rather have Izzet Snapcaster over Electrolyze. Grafdigger's Cage doesn't really do anything in this version. It really helps against the Experimental Frenzy version of old school Affinity that just ended up just adding Experimental Frenzy instead of Animation Module and Hardened Scales. That's the word. It's totally a word. I'm less of a fan of some of these higher end cards, so we are technically Angel Tribal. Lyra's probably our best 5-drop. Archangel Avicen's not really going to do anything. If they're killing our creatures, it's typically going to be with a Walking Ballista, which means our sideboard plan failed, and it also means that they'll just ping it in response to Archangel Avicen. Baneslayer, it just sat in our hand last game, and that's basically what I expected to do. Their entire deck is insanely cheap. I'm less of a fan of Remand. I would probably prefer to see some of these other cards. I've mentioned it before. Rest in Peace will stop. Sorry, I'll pull it over so it can be read. Rest in Peace can stop the death trigger from Modular. And from Hangerback Walker. That's essentially 12 cards in their list. But we have multiple cards that do that already, so I'm less inclined to bring this in. Rest in Peace is great versus graveyard strategies. I'm not a huge fan with just generally bringing it in against cards that technically have death triggers in them. We do have multiple cards here that we have 4 of, so Pyromancer's Ascension could be good. I mean, we can either bring in our 5 drops or Pyromancer's Ascension or potentially Electrolyze. Of the cards here, I think I'd prefer Pyromancer's Ascension. It's a 2-drop, and we're kind of missing 2 drops. I don't know how to feel about this matchup because they can just draw the right card at the right time, and we're just hosed. There's so many times where I'm like, oh, this is locked up, and then they just end up top decking something that one-shots me. Single land doesn't do anything. London Mulligans are great. We have no blue cards, we have no blue lands, but we have exile effects, we have bolts, helixes, ascension. I'll keep it and toss back. I don't really want to toss back Linval. This is one of our strongest hate pieces. So I suppose that's just going to be the Lightning Helix. We don't really care about getting life at this point. Alright, well, turn 1 Stirrings is... and they're looking for lands. Don't know how to feel about that one. Alright, our life total does matter in this matchup, but holding up Bolt and Path is great, especially if next turn I'm expecting a Pyromancer's Ascension. Oh boy. Alright, know what to do about that. If I Path it, they get their land, which means I'll be looking at a very explosive turn from them next turn. I'll end up having Bolt and Path. They can have the extra land drop. I'd prefer not to have to worry about the Thopter this early. Proper sequencing is probably to do that up there at their upkeep. Oh boy. Or I'm not getting attacked next turn, and I'm going to be able to get Pyromancer's Ascension online. The extra Bolt was tempting enough. Alright, well, Welding Jar is a thing, but we can just double bolt it if they only put 1 threat out. Typically, I've been king of the 2-3 bracket, where we lose 3 games and come back and win the last 2, but this deck's actually kind of been doing some stuff. We are playing some very powerful cards. Angels was my first EDH deck that I ever built, and the guy I work with that basically plays all of EDH is like, of course, Angels are big, strong cards. Like, you don't really need to do anything overly broken with them. You just need to run them out, and they'll do powerful things, and that's actually kind of shown itself to be true today. All right. What exactly does this mean? I can bolt, see if they actually Welding Jar, bolt, or Path, however it falls out. Let's get it on. Trading a bolt for a Welding Jar is typically bad, but if that means that we're getting a counter on our Pyromancer's Ascension, I'm on board. I do have to wait for the bolt to go to the graveyard before I recast it, though. Otherwise, I won't get the counter off of my Pyromancer's Ascension. Bolt. Now I need to always guess that. And then we'll see if they actually Welding Jar it. If they Welding Jar it, it means that it's one of their only threats. Guess they don't care. And I'm going to shock it into play again. If I can get my last counter on this Pyromancer's Ascension, great. We are running white, so I'm expecting my opponent to have Nature's Claim. Okay. Pretty much as expected. Alright, so argument to Path here is efficient use of mana. If I end up getting Linvala out, I'm basically going to shut down the Still Overseer as it is. If I draw a land, Linvala's coming out. If I don't, I can still Path it upkeep or with another card on the stack. And that is beyond awkward. Alright, so animation module will make Still Overseer go wide. Mantis Rider will start getting in some damage. Opponent has 2 cards in hand. I knew opponent was going to Nature's Claim. It probably wasn't right to bring in Pyromancer's Ascension. But so greedy line here is Mantis Rider getting 3 damage. Opponent ends up dropping out a land, a Arcbound Ravager, and something else. Alternatively, I just path this at upkeep and then hopefully Linvala. I think I'll give it at least one more turn. Our clock is very important because they can always just top deck the thing that kills us, but with Linvala in hand, it's basically just too good. Opponent does have a grinding engine here, though, where they can just get a ton of servos, keep growing the servos. Alright, Opal is a pseudo land. Ravager. Alright, so they're still going to be able to grow their engine by putting out a servo. Or just sacking the servos and getting the Arcbound Ravager, putting out another servo when it gets the counter. Linvala would be great, so this Arcbound Ravager will just be a 1-1. They'll end up having a servo. Yeah, I actually probably should have pathed this during my turn. That was missequencing on my part. So they're going to use Opal, get another servo. Then if I don't get a run out Linvala, they'll just be able to crack the servo, get a counter, put another servo out. But that kind of fixes that problem. So I need plain or island. Yep, I'll have 2 red, 2 blue, 3 white. And I don't believe they have a way to kill my creatures. I think some lists actually did start splashing for, or not splashing, did start running Dismember. But that seems fringe enough that it's probably not going to happen. I am going to double check a couple of lists, though, as long as we're waiting for opponent to take their turn. Oh, wow, Hardened Scale's Affinity dropped a ton in meta percentage. I know it's not overly accurate, but... So, 2 Dismember. Of note, this does only stop creatures. So, they can still animation module and grow things. So like they can Pendelhaven, make it a 2-3, put a counter on it, make it a 3-4. Okay, kind of a weak stirrings. They do get to go wide, but we're going to have 6 damage evasive in the air. Alright, now they can proliferate. So, that's going to be some decent-sized creatures. Luckily, that's a faster clock. So these are going to be 3/3s attacking in. I'm on the table for 9. I'm attacking for 3. I'll end up taking 8. This Mantis Rider's representing 9 damage next turn. Hopefully get a bolt. So get a proliferate, make 2 servos. Alright, being able to proliferate means they can Pendelhaven one of these, make it a 3-4, kill my Mantis Rider. But I blocked there. They'll Pendlehaven this guy. I'll take 9. Or I guess 7, because they didn't proliferate last turn. Crackback for 9 on the table for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think we're still ahead in this race. That will drop us below, but still get 2 blockers for the servos that they're making. And it was a mistake to run out the Flooded Strand because I could draw Expansion Explosion, or I could just make my 5-drop next turn. I'm likely not cracking the land unless I need to, because I think that does speed up the clock for our opponent by 1 turn. But they should be using this animation module. It looks like they are. Okay, so they proliferate. They add another counter. That's going to be 4, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, but I'm blocking 2. So opponent has to draw a removal spell for Linvala. Or another Throne of Geth. But if they play Throne of Geth, they won't be able to activate the animation module. But it should still net them 1 more damage. Interesting game, though. The Hardened Scales math gets complex very quickly. I think opponent's sitting there doing the math. I think we've just been passing back and forth trying to do the math. Mantis Rider, being a hasty, evasive threat, is showing its strength again. It is an all-star in humans, potentially one of the better cards in the deck. I think Meddling Mage takes the trophy for the best card in the deck, but this is definitely its most threatening card. Turn 2 Mantis Rider with all these lieutenants is just so bad. Alright, so just double checking. They sack one of the ones that I'm blocking, proliferate, so it's going to be 7. They add a counter. It's going to be 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, I think they come up 1 damage shy, so I'm going to be conservative here. Because if I block either of these, I can just sack it and modular it over. So this is by far the best block. If they find a way to put a counter on one of these guys, it's bad. Yep. They made a servo? Why did they make a servo? So they can sack one of the ones that I'm blocking, proliferate. Yep. And they get a Pendlehaven the last thing. But that's going to put me on 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Opponent's been a little slow applying their triggers. Yeah, they figured it out. All right, well, currently 6-0. This is doing significantly better than I wanted to give it credit for when we started. But we've already cashed out. Yay, lightning! Thunderbolts and lightning, very, very frightening. Me, Galileo. Galileo. Oh, well, yeah, so lightning. I'm still a huge fan of the card Lightning Bolt. I know the subreddit did the Magic card brackets where they basically put every card from history together, and it came down to Lightning Bolt versus Bird. I know a lot of people might have tampered with that because the saying always bolt the bird, and they kind of just wanted to see them in the finals, but Lightning Bolt is your premium removal. It's 1 mana, it deals 3 damage to something. It's the red version of Ancestral Recall. Ancestral Recall is significantly more powerful, but it's also power 9, it's reserve list, all that fun stuff. Lightning Bolt can hit planeswalkers, creatures, it can hit the face. Bolt Snap Bolt is actually an entire strategy in Modern and kind of Legacy. Just does so much. We're going to end up running copies of Lightning Bolt, Lightning Helix. Our creatures are Lightning Bolts on a stick. Most of the time that we run them out, they're just going to be a Lightning Bolt and potentially stick around. It did take Magic a little while to figure out that creatures are more powerful than spells. Or it started the other way around, and R&D decided to kind of mix it up for newer sets, but Sarah Angel and Shivan Dragon were both premier creatures that just stuck around and did repeated damage, but Lightning Bolt is kind of showing itself as a very flexible spell that does a lot, and that's exactly what this deck does, is just a ton of Lightning Bolts. And if you couldn't tell, I wanted to do this deck just because of the Queen song, Bohemian Rhapsody. Really wanted to. Alright, so we have Bolton, Path, and eventually a Mantis Rider, an Electrolyze, and a Teferi. This actually looks a lot like stock Jeskai control hand, minus the Mantis Rider. Mantis Rider ideally being another land. I can mulligan, we're also on the draw, we have interaction. If this is Storm, it's basically an auto loss keeping this hand, but I think it's powerful enough that we can hang on to it. Oh boy, looks like Phoenix. Pretty much Phoenix. Potentially Goryo's, but statistics say Phoenix. Alright, so gonna go Scalding Tarn. It's not impossible that they just Manamorphose or Serum Visions or Thought Scour. I think Thought Scour is a little more common in their list. Just Thought Scour or Serum Visions. Land, Gut Shot. Alright, so nothing from opponent. That means we get to get our blue and red source. Then I'm going to shock this into play. It telegraphs that we probably have something to do, but honestly, if they end up bringing back those 2 Phoenixes, I need to Path 1 and Bolt the other. So, Mantis Rider comes down, eats a Bolt. I hold up Electrolyze. I can always just Electrolyze their face. Hold up Bolt, Bolt, Path. Yeah, I liked a little bit of a slower roll here. I'm definitely getting the read that the opponent has a Bolt. There's a Snappy Boy. Perfect target for Electrolyze. Hey, look at that! They had a Bolt! Go figure. And imagine actually understanding how this deck works, and Pete, and just absolutely ripping it apart in front of opponent's eyes. How's that 1 card in hand treating you, opponent? Okay, I don't want to take a shock. They are technically a burn deck. It's very possible that they end up just having Manamorphose or something. This might even be a remand. Well, that's a Drake. I'm gonna Teferi Tuck this. It's not the best feeling in the world, but because it just draws a card. But I feel like getting rid of it is a tempo play worth having, especially if it ends up eating a bolt or something. Teferi's going to eat a gut shot more than likely. But if Mantis Rider gets in next turn, then that means I just need a bolt to win. I only have one Phoenix to bring back. And they can always flash back Faithless Looting, so they get their Phoenix. Alright, or they will just cantrip away. If Phoenix comes in, it actually might be on defense. By the way, opponent right now is looking for a way to get more Phoenixes in the bin. Flashback looting. Okay, so they did find one more Phoenix. Two come back, we'll figure out where they go. Bolt it to Teferi. Yep, Teferi goes down. And I have multiple draws at getting a bolt. Mantis Rider costs one too much. But if I Mantis Rider this turn, I'm on double block duty. Electrolyze should finish it off. Hallowed Fountain definitely to the bottom. I'm not a fan of Remand versus the 1 mana deck that's trying to multicast. But this is the matchup where we're going to see the power of Lightning Angel being able to block Arclight Phoenix. Hello, Crackling Drake. I think you might be a little late to the party, bud. Your crew's on defense, and we're a burn deck. GG's. Alright, Rip comes in. There could be an argument for Grafdigger's Cage here as well. I love Settle the Wreckage because it's going to end up taking their most explosive starts. Izzet Snapcaster is horrible. You need 2 of them to kill a Phoenix. They're probably going to be on the Pyromancer's Ascension plan themselves, and we don't really have great ways to remove their stuff. Initial versions of this list had Wear Tear just because I absolutely love that card, but it is what it is. Linvala can block Arclight. Aurelia profitably blocks Arclight. We just have so many better flying creatures than them, and we have early enough interaction for it to go. Absolutely hate Remand. It bounces a card to their hand half the time. This is going to be 1 mana. It might even be Mutagenic Growth, although after seeing opponents seeing that we are a burn deck for the most part, they're probably going to be keeping or taking those out. Stony Silence does nothing. Pyromancer's Ascension feels like a card worth having a discussion about. We're just going to have better creatures than them. If they end up having bolts and they like double bolt our stuff, then that's a thing. Logic Knot feels kind of iffy, especially if we're bringing in Rip. I guess we'd be hitting a point where I'm curious if Electrolyze or Pyromancer's Ascension is better. This can snag their Snapcasters, also cantrips. Most of our one-ofs are creatures, which is why I ended up putting the Pyromancer's Ascensions in over the Wear Tears. This feels right. They're not going to have removal for our enchantments, so they're going to be in the same boat we are. We're going to be playing a similar list, but all of our stuff is 4 toughness, so we can run it as is. I actually don't think I've ever heard what people think the matchup between Jeskai Control and Phoenix is. I just absolutely hate playing against Phoenix myself. We have a Rip, Bolts, and Cantrips. I love this hand. The only thing this hand is missing is a Lightning Angel. That kind of works, though. I mean, that's going to block what we want it to. I do want to actually use the Serum Visions. Opponents setting up for a Thought Scour. It's possible we get blown out by their turn 2 Nut Draw, but they can do them. Hey, look at that. We even have Baneslayer. Oh, we already have a Lightning Angel. We have 3 mana. All of these have to go to the bottom, unfortunately. We're pretty capped out on creature threats. I kind of just want to stop them from doing their main game plan. Please be a titty. Alright, well. That's what I expected in this world. But as long as they can't spell snare, Rip comes out. Their Ascension's going to be offline. We brought in ours with Rip, which is a bit of a non-bow. Like, we're seeing the power here, but hey, they're targeting us. They know about Settle now. Hopefully they play around it. We've only got the 2. And we need a land. I'm kind of expecting an Ambush Viper here, aka Snapcaster through Rip. Yeah, let's just turn off yields. Alright, no Snappy Boy. Cackling Drake? Oh, opponent, you played right into our trap card. It's improbable that they're running Disrupting Shoal or a Pact of Negation, but I'd rather not give them a card to draw. Just a little bit of a tighter play. If we draw a land, Lightning Angel should be pretty much closing this out. Didn't. Now I hope they're not playing around Settle. Really needed that last land. We could wait a bit on Avacyn, but we really needed that last land. Alright, they only have 1 card active. This feels horrible, but I'm just going to double bolt the Drake. This is one of their best win conditions through Rip, so if I can get rid of 2 of them early enough, that's how we're going to win this game. Own Pyromancer's Ascension is awful, but I'm going to disincentivize opponent from actually blowing up the Rip. Opponent's probably questioning life about how we're getting ahead with this non-bow, but maybe Electrolyze was better. Electrolyze with Bolts, a little bit more synergistic. Electrolyze might have actually hit our last land drop. It might be correct to move to that post-board, but in the meantime, Lightning Angel. So opponent's probably actually going to flip their Thing in the Ice here, but I'm kind of okay making that concession just so that I have to get a second white source for Settle and for Avacyn. I'm kind of okay to make the concession and get hit for 7. They're not technically a burn deck. Most of their bolts are... Those are all our bolts. Okay, well, we could still get bolted out, but if they can't flip Thing in the Ice here, then that's what it is. If we hit another land drop, Archangel Avacyn can block Thing in the Ice for a turn. I think opponent's trying to figure out if they want to counter this or not. What could they have? Remand? I don't think they run Logic Knot. It's not very synergistic to their game plan. They don't even have a graveyard. Oh, are you going to flip it now? Well, if you flip it now, I apologize, opponent. I did not give you the respect you deserved. All right. I just got wrecked. Well done, opponent. Oh, this is going to be awesome if I draw a land. I can block for a turn and then settle. Oh, that is great. Haha, the janky Archangel Avacyn. Hopefully they don't just have 2 bolts, because that could go downhill quickly for me. Or if they flip this thing in the ice. If opponent has double bolt, they're just going to kill us, not Archangel Avacyn. Alright. So that's a thing. And I think I did learn I want Electrolyze over Pyromancer's Ascension. It was a calculated risk going in. It hurt us. Remand's also cute versus Lightning Axe, but that doesn't feel worthwhile. We have 3 rips. It does look like opponent actually took the Phoenixes out, though. I'm actually going to try to next level this and bring in the Logic Knots and the Pyromancer's Ascensions and probably just trim a... This felt horrible. I don't like tapping out 5 mana and then getting it flipped by a thing in the ice. Alright, Path, Bolt, Serum, Mantis. Good enough for government work. So I'm going to have to get Steam Vents on 1 and Shock in the Sacred Foundry on 2. That feels bad. I don't think 2 Mantis Riders does it unless I path a thing. But they're going to play Thing the turn that I would want a Mantis Rider. Mantis Rider, Bolt, Bolt. That's currently representing 12 damage. They definitely took out their mutagenic growths. I have the 3 mana. Yeah, we can keep that on top. That's probably a game-ending error, if it's an error, but it feels good enough that it's worth trying to do. If they discard 2 Phoenixes, I'm going to be so sad. Alright, no Phoenixes. And I do want to try to preserve my life total a little bit. I think I'm going to put this in tapped and just hold up Bolt. If they Thing here... Okay, if they can't Thing. If they're to Thing in the ice there, that would be the play mistake. I needed to be able to path it, but I wouldn't want to path it during their turn anyway. But that is actually representing a pretty fantastic clock. So Mantis Rider gets to come down, hit for 3, require removal from opponent. Another land would be great. There's a Thing in the ice. Another land would be great. Alright, well, they do have their Phoenixes, so that's on me. And I only have 1 white source, so... If they end up flipping, I'm going to feel super bad, but... The argument is I can path during my turn and they can't interact, or I can do it at their upkeep and they won't have the untapped land for turn. But this deck typically doesn't like running interaction. It tries to just run 3 cards that it can cast at any given point in time, which is why they end up running the Lightning Bolts, is because they can cast those whenever they want to at the opponent's face. And again, I probably should have killed it with the trigger on the stack, but whatever. Playing against Phoenix feels very draining. They always just have the right cards, and... Like, they have 3 cards in hand, but they can sculpt that to be whatever they want within, like, the top 20 cards within the next turn or 2, so... So they're currently 4 cards in for turn. They found their Bolt, and they're bringing back a Phoenix. Which is what every deck should be able to do with 3 cards in hand when you pass to them, right? That's what they're supposed to do. Now they're going to Thought Scour. No, well, they only found the 1 Phoenix. Ooh, that's painful. Alright, well, Aurelia blocks that quite nicely. So for those of you unfamiliar with the standard card, Mentor isn't super relevant here, but it's going to have Trample and Vigilance and Attack as a 4/5, but most importantly, it's going to be blocking Arclight Phoenix and surviving unless they also have a Bolt. But unfortunately, still dies to Lightning Axe, because that's what you want out of your 4-mana stables, right? Oh boy, this is going to go downhill quickly. Yep, and they get a flashback the other Faithless Looting, get all their counters. They found another Arclight Phoenix. Alright, well, get an attack in for 4. Odds are they're going to block because they're expecting to... Oh, I was supposed to leave up Settle and take the shock. Oh well. Very dead to Lightning Bolt. Because they just get a Lightning Bolt us for 6, so... Oh boy, this is bad. Well, so much for our winning streak. Which is sad, because this is what the deck was supposed to counter, was the 3/2s. Alright, well, Cackling Drake isn't great. I want both my white sources for Settle, so I'm going to path now. Go, Aurelia. Also keep this last card in hand. Again, we don't really care about having an additional land out at the given moment. We can cast just about everything in our deck. It's also representing Lightning Bolt and Lightning Helix, which isn't irrelevant. Opponent gets sculpted away. Yay, Arclight Phoenix. We are currently 1-1 versus them. I'm so bad at updating that record. Magic Online would be great if it had an API where I could just pull out my record. Discarded Blood Moon. Probably should have been a little more aware of that, but really doesn't matter. Jace. Bounce Aurelia? Yep. Aha, well this Settle's probably going to steal all 4 Phoenixes. Well, opponent has actually been a little unlucky with them. And because Bolt does represent 6 damage, actually I'll just take that, who cares? Oh boy. Really telegraphing we have to settle the wreckage in hand, either that or the Avacyn. This deck is so frustrating to play against. All they need to do is find Lightning Bolt now. Bolt. Did you seriously take all of your bolts out of your deck? Counter it so I can move on with my life? Yeah, absolutely ridiculous opponent. Alright, first loss. But opponent wanted me to watch them play with themselves. So, what can you do? In Arena, it's not necessarily considered bad manners to do that, because most of the time your opponent has a quest to play X, like, red cards. So they get to just sit there and play red cards and then attack you for lethal. It's almost considered polite to just let your opponent play out their hand. In Modern like that, though, when you're probably holding... Yeah, pretty much is. In Modern, when you're holding lethal, like, they had seen 80% of their deck and filtered their way through it, and they're probably holding like 3 bolts in hand. They just need to play it out. Like, yes, we had some open mana, but we had also only seen probably about 20 cards that late in the game. It's hard not to be salty about that, though. Like, that deck is so busted. I don't know anybody that likes playing against it. It's just like... I still have that video of the guy flipping Thing in the Ice on turn 3 or 4 and getting all 4 Arclight Phoenixes back because he had seen like 60% of his deck by turn 4. So freaking busted. Alright, we have Serum Visions, Into a Bolt, Electrolyze, Mantis Rider. These are cards we put in our deck. They do things. I always love seeing cantrips. It's weird that we're playing a tempo deck where a finisher comes down on turn 3, but we signed up for that with Thunderbolts and Lightning. Very, very frightening. Ooh, they have a mythic. I still don't know how you get all of these. Like, I know some of them come from the treasure chests, but... Alright, I'm getting an odd feeling this is Blood Moon. It probably isn't even remotely correct, but if it's a Blood Moon, that'll turn into a mountain. I can just get my island here. Plus, the number of times that I've played Burn in the last round has been insanely high, so I'd prefer to keep my life total high. Clifftop Retreat is great. We don't know what we're playing against, so... Actually, I kind of want to put that on top. That's likely going to be my turn 2 play. I don't know what we're playing against, but I can still draw into Remand and remand whatever comes down on turn 2 for tempo, and it's... We're Prison. Or Experimental Artifacts? Experimental Artifacts. Alright, so that kind of changes my plan here. Gonna run out Scalding Tarn. I can still remand if they end up Legend Ruling Mox Opal. If they don't, I'm probably gonna have Bolt up for this Vault Scourge. Yep, there's the Cranial Plating. I'll bolt whatever they target with it. Woo! The reeds. So, not expecting Blood Moon. I need to get red and white. So, Sacred Foundry. Bolt. Then holding up Electrolyze, this lifelink with Cranial Plating will actually ruin our tempo game plan, so... Or potentially Bolt with Remand. Both are fine. Apostle's Blessing? Oh no, they floated mana because they're going to lose Affinity. Alright, opponent, you have my respect. You know how to play your deck. But I also know how to play control, so... sorry, opponent, but this isn't going to feel great. I am leaving myself open to the Experimental Frenzy I'm expecting, but this feels great enough value that I can do what I need to. If they end up putting Cranial Plating on the Inkmoth Nexus, I'll happily make that trade. They lose Metalcraft unless they activate the Inkmoth. Alright, then... I really want to Aurelia Lightning Angel. Is that such a bad dream? You know what? That's what I'm trying for. If we get a land next turn, that's going to be remanned with Aurelia. They do have Metalcraft. Steel Overseer's fine. Cranial Plating will be able to remove creature of their choice, unless I draw Bolt like a champion. I do like this deck. I don't think it's the most competitive, but it's putting up enough results, and it's letting me play with Angels and all the cards I love. Like, look at that. I'm putting an opponent to 1. That's amazing. I'm leaving blockers up so they can't one-shot me with Inkmoth. And then I get to bring in Stony Silence like a champion. And as Ecstatic Caster, Settle the Wreckage, Linvala. So many good cards. Alright, so Affinity likes to drop their hand. Remand just loses so much value. Part of the reason I wanted to bottom it, but it just made sense for my curve to actually play it. Electrolyze showed its power there, being able to just chip off a creature, get some damage in, replace itself. As far as cuts, Baneslayer being 5 mana is a little painful. First Strike is relevant, but Lyra is technically our Angel Lord, so that's going to stick around. Teferi, if we're getting to the point against Affinity where we have to try to grind out, Teferi's not the right call. It means that I punted somewhere, and it's probably just not having Wear Tear for Experimental Frenzy. Logic Knot also feels terrible. All their stuff is cheap. This will hit Experimental Frenzy or Arcbound Ravager, Steel Overseer, Cranial Plating, but I don't really want to hold the mana up for that. This is technically tap out tempo, where I'm tapping out for my threats and hopefully bolting or helixing when it's relevant, as opposed to like trying to hold up a ton of mana for Logic Knot. Jeskai does like Cryptic Command, but we already have so many expensive cards, just so many of them. This is looking most relevant. Again, First Strike is relevant, but 5 mana doesn't feel like it. Teferi's going to be for grinding out. Pyromancers could be relevant, but opponent's probably likely going to have Galvanic Blast, which can actually kill our X4s. Yeah, whatever. Kind of just ready to wrap up the league. I have been having fun with this one. Oh my gosh! This feels mean. This feels so mean. If we get one shot on turn 3, this will feel bad. But otherwise, this is 3 Static Casters against Affinity. And they are setting up for a turn 3 kill. Alright. So, I know I'm not going to be shocking. This can get a basic. Alright, well hopefully we don't die. Because if we don't die, this is just going to be cruel and unusual torture for our opponent. Oh, they're setting up for it. Alright, so I actually do have to shock this end because it's very possible they just drop 4 0-drops and Cranial Plating the Inkmoth and one-shot us, so I need to try to find a bolt here. Lightning Angel isn't needed. 5th land isn't needed. This will at least threaten our opponent into thinking that we can potentially bolt whatever they committed to. And I guess we'll find out if they're squatting on a bunch of 0-drops. Alright, so they're going to take a slower approach, which means we are going to wreck that Steel Overseer. Sorry, opponent, this won't feel great. Sorry, I should highlight this card because I'm freaking out about it so much. It deals 1 damage to target creature, and each creature that shares the same name as that target for 3 mana. It has Flash and Haste. So I get to flash it in, kill the Steel Overseer. They'll end up having 4 artifacts, so we'll get 5 poison. They won't have 4 cards to drop. Yeah, looking pretty good. So I need red and blue. I need a second white because I have Settle in my deck. So I need Hallowed Fountain. And I'm doing this now so that they can't activate the Steel Overseer. It's going to be the card that can definitely do the most. This will grow it out of range of the first Static Caster. Pew! Alright, first one down. Ooh, Arcbound's a pretty good one. And this is actually slightly awkward. So I can shoot the Arcbound Ravager. That'll make them commit into the Ornithopter. I won't really die yet. But Ornithopter will grow. They can make that into a 2/2, and that does nothing. Or make it a 3/3, so I can't even really electrolyze it. Oh boy, I don't know what the right call is here. Arcbound Ravager makes math so awkward. So I could put out just a blocker, but then they can attack in with Inkmoth and Ornithopter, move the Cranial Plating over, invest into it, and one-shot me. So I think first things first, we need to electrolyze for 2. That'll make them sack a ton of stuff into it if they want to survive, and hopefully draw into a bolt. Game is ended. Okay, opponent, you weren't dead. In fact, we were very close to dead. Like, super close to dead. But whatever. We did have 2 more Static Casters in hand, so I suppose that's fair. So, coming back, though, we ended up losing 2 games versus Arclight Phoenix. We end up running 4 Lightning Angels, an Aurelia, a Lyra, a Baneslayer, 2 Electrolyze, 8 1-mana spells. So we have 7 creatures and 10 spells that can kill an Arclight Phoenix and 4 that exile it. I feel like we are so favored in that matchup. Crackling Drake and Thing in the Ice both have 4 toughness, so there might be an argument to put Flame Slash in this deck, but this did feel like a real deck. Going 4-1 actually did show some real results. We were playing with very powerful cards, though. Lightning Bolt, Lightning Helix, Serum Visions, Path to Exile. All these are tried and true. They're very powerful. I'm sure that somebody's going to walk in and tune this if they want to play this deck. Find out you're only supposed to be running 3 Lightning Bolts or 2 Helixes or not be running the Electrolyze. But we ended up having the powerful card of Lightning Angel, one of my favorites. Like, this is not a typical 2-for-1 immediate value. Well, I guess it gets a little immediate value by basically bolting your opponent in the face. But Lightning Angel is a fantastic card. Fatal Push is losing a little bit of value. Like, if I actually do go look at this, gotta switch over to this guy. Again, I've said this before, this is kind of biased meta information. It's not exactly accurate. They don't get true data, but it's fairly representative of what they're doing. Izzet Phoenix runs Lightning Bolt, Tron runs Dismember, Humans basically runs Meddling Mage and Deputy of Detention, Dreadrunge Conflagrate, Path to Exile, Fatal Push, but mainly discard, Bolt. I think they run like 2 Fatal Push. I could be wrong on this one. 3 Fatal Push. But 1 Lightning Bolt. Okay, I'm super wrong on that one. Amulet Titan doesn't really run anything. Burn is Lightning Bolt. Galvanic Blast. Most of this isn't really going to hit what we're doing. You have to have Revolt in order to kill our Lightning Angel or our Mantis Rider. They're very strong threats. They hit the table, they deal 3 damage. We're technically a burn deck. Snapcaster should be somewhere in this list. Lyra is cute. Baneslayer's cute. Most of the time that we were able to drop them, they won the game. Burn ended up just scooping when they saw Lyra because they already had to use 2 burn spells against Lightning Angel. These are all must-answer threats. They're very tempo, and they're in fantastic colors. Teferi's great, but Jeskai Control's also a thing. Like, this does feel like a bad version of Jeskai Control. Love this deck, though. Fantastic cards. All do tempo things. We had a couple of fun ofs. Aurelia didn't really do anything. We did get a player out once, but she ended up... We got a player out once to buff a Lightning Angel, and then we played her against Phoenix right before we got splatted by the guy that just wanted to diddle himself. Fun stuff, though. I don't know if the Pyromancer's Ascension is correct. Probably want Wear Tear in the side. I'm just a huge fan of it. 3 static casters might be overkill. Super funny against Affinity, though. That just felt like the nut draw versus them. I like it, though. If you like Lightning Bolt, if you like to ping things, great deck. Highly recommended. Again, not super meta. Jeskai Control might be better. Probably is better. But Lightning Angel, Thunderbolts and Lightning, Galileo, all those things. Magnifica. Fun stuff. Oh, well, thanks for watching. Yay! Thunderbolt. Woo! Thanks, everyone.